Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something a little bit deeper than we normally do. Hunting has been a way of life for me since I can remember. I bought my first license literally the first year I could, and I was involved in hunting long before that. Some of my most vivid and best memories are from a hunting trip. I can still very distinctly remember sitting next to my dad as he took a doe during shotgun season in Michigan, and I watched my first deer get taken. And from that moment on, I was absolutely hooked. And I think that's what it's about for a lot of people: family, friends, connection to nature, getting away from all of it. But we've all heard the news. We've heard declining hunter participation, declining hunter recruitment. So let's talk about it. Is hunting a dying way of life? It's a question that sparks a lot of debate, and honestly, it's a very complex and somewhat deeply personal question. And as you dive into the numbers, the answer gets even more complex. We all try and walk that fine line, right? You want people to support your way of life. You want people to be involved in it so that you have people to advocate for it. But we all also go to the great outdoors to be alone, get away from it all. So if you're out there and you're tripping over people, you're showing up to trailheads at a spot you want to hunt and there's 100 trucks there, it's not something that you look forward to. And it's a really sliding scale of where you want that hunter participation to be. You want it to be enough that you have some strength in numbers for your way of life, but you also want it to be low enough that it doesn't affect you personally for there to be extra people out in the field. It's a very complex question trying to figure out what that right number is. So let's talk about those numbers. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is the mecca for all information when it comes to hunting license sales, and a whole bunch of other studies. For the most part, states have to report their hunting license sales and all of their demographics and everything along those lines if they want to be eligible for grant opportunities and funding. So you want to get federal dollars, you got to report to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and that's why they have fairly accurate numbers across the entire country. So let's talk about that from sea to shining sea, America, the whole country. Hunting license sales peaked in the early 80s at a just over 16 million hunter clip. Now, once it hit that peak, it just started going down, and it's just gone down for the most part ever since. If you look at it, in 2000, we were down 2.3 million hunters from the peak. Now, they have done a good job with recruitment since that absolute valley. It started to climb up just a little bit, not to where we were at our peak, but we're only down about 800,000 hunters from the peak. Now, this is where it gets complicated with those numbers. If you look at it geographically, the area around the Midwest, East Coast, just absolutely cratering in hunter numbers. Some of the mecca states, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan to a lesser extent, Ohio, Virginia, they've all cratered over 40% since their peak in the 70s and 80s. Now, that's a really big deal. Obviously, those are total license sales, all right? Waterfowl, small game, deer, turkey, everything of the sort. But when you look at it, white-tailed deer in the Midwest, one of the most hunted animals in this country. Probably not even one of, it is absolutely the most hunted animal in this country. So when some of your huge states are dropping by 40% since their peak with no signs of recovery, that really could have devastating impacts on hunting. When you look at it, again, at a much broader national scale, hunter participation in adults over 16 has dropped to 4.5%. Now that means for every 100 adults you see, 4.5 of them hunt. I don't know what half a hunter is. I assume it's, I don't know, maybe like a road hunter. It's not real hunting, so maybe we'll go with that. I'm just kidding. If you road hunt, you're still welcome around here. Just know you're gonna catch a little bit of flack. But if you look at other parts of the country, we'll look at the Southeast first. Georgia and Alabama, through the roof in their numbers. Now, I know you guys are gonna be shocked by this, but looking through government websites is very, very dry and painful. So I couldn't find regulations for the years that Alabama and Georgia jumped. I don't know if they had a change in how you had to buy your licenses and more people had to buy them, or what happened, or if they're just doing great with their recruitment. But in some parts of the country, business is booming, all right? If you jump west of the Mississippi, Colorado, Idaho, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, they're all either at record numbers for license sales or darn near it. Now, I think there could be some reasons for that, all right? When I hunted just in Michigan, granted I was a lot younger and had much less disposable income, but all I had was a Michigan hunting license. That was it. I hunted my home state and didn't really venture outside of that. Now I am out west and I have licenses in, I don't know, 5 states I think right now. Part of that is because in the Western US, tags are harder to draw, so I have to venture out. I don't really have a choice, whereas in Michigan, it's pretty much guaranteed a tag every year. But beyond that, guys, the Western US is just sexy right now, all right? You got the big snow-topped mountains, the pine trees, elk, bear, moose, mule deer, sheep, antelope. It's way more than just the standard Midwest whitetail. Now that is not to take anything from Midwest whitetail. That will forever be my first love, all right? I will never take anything from it. But right now, if you look at the climate of hunting, Western hunting is pretty sexy. Now with that comes the second reason that people probably have licenses in multiple states. And that is that it has never been more accessible, all right? The articles, onX, Go Hunt, things that break down draw odds, things that give you reminders on when to put in for your draw dates. It has never been easier to plan a Western hunt. Back in the 70s and 80s, you could probably read a couple of articles in Field and Stream, think you have a decent idea, and then you just start driving west. Maybe you pick up some giant paper topo maps and try and dive through them a little bit. But for the most part, it was a lot of guessing, and it really didn't feel probably as attainable for people as it does nowadays. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I think it complicates the numbers a little bit, right? I have licenses in Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado, all right? So I have 5 licenses just to my name that are getting reported to US Fish and Wildlife. That probably helps boost the numbers out west, because what I do, probably, I don't know, 100,000 other guys do. But when you look at the Midwest, again, I had my home license and that's it, 1 license. And I think there are probably a lot of people that just hunt their home state. There are definitely diehard whitetail dudes that probably have licenses in Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, all of the big buck states. But for the most part, you're probably only getting reported in 1 state. So it's probably a little bit more truer reflection of how many hunters really are in the Midwest. And that's probably why those numbers are cratering a little bit. But the doom and gloom doesn't stop there. The other issue we have is the age of hunters, all right? Less than half of the hunters are under 45. That's male, female, black, white, Hispanic, everybody. If you are under 45, you make up less than half of the hunters in the US. Now, for those of you mathematicians out there, that means over half of our hunters are over 45. And the reason that is a huge issue is because, well, as they grow old, they're just gonna age out of it. That means over half of our hunters are on the back end of their career right now. Now, the other scary part of that is when you look at youth license sales, all right? I'll use my home state of Michigan as an example. Michigan youth sales are down like 22% since 1995. It's 22% less youth we have in the field and less people we have to replace these folks that are starting to age out. So if you're a hunter in like your 80s, I need you to just hang on. Keep going, my man. Never stop. We need your number. But really, it starts to become a snowball effect, all right? We already have lower numbers. We have less youth, and we have a huge pool of older hunters that are about to age out. Once that snowball starts rolling, you're just gonna have a super sharp decline in hunting. Again, this is a complex issue, all right? What these numbers mean is for you, probably in the next 10, 20 years, you're gonna have some chance at some cool tags and less pressure and probably some decent hunting. But the scary thing is for your kids, your grandkids, even your great-grandkids beyond that, you're not going to have nearly as many people to advocate for your way of life, your traditions, and what you've really come to love. So what does the future look like for them? It's a little scary if you ask me. So let's dig into why we're seeing these decreases in numbers. I think it's probably due to a couple of different reasons. First is really opportunity. Again, I know you guys will be shocked, but government websites, not necessarily the most efficient or easiest to dig through or most entertaining. Probably not as transparent as they should be either. So I don't have an exact number, but we all know, we see it on the news every night. New state, new federal, new local land being sold off for development. This is where it starts snowballing again. You're a public land hunter that doesn't have anywhere to hunt. Well, really gone are the days of just going up, knocking on a door, and getting permission to hunt land with a handshake, all right? Now everything's a lease because people can make money off of hunting. So now you have to buy a lease. You potentially have to buy multiple leases. You have only certain dates you can hunt. It just gets a lot more complicated, and it really drives people away because the opportunity just isn't there anymore. I think another thing that hurts hunting is that you don't have as many mentors out there anymore, right? Numbers are declining. That means there's less people in the field to help you. And that means if you don't know what you're doing and you go and you strike out a couple of times, or it gets really hard and it's just not enjoyable, you're probably not going to go back. I think that's where you look at that age demographic, right? We have a whole bunch of hunters on the back end of their career, and as they age out, the folks that really, really, really know what they're doing just aren't going to be around as much. So not having a mentor can be a huge roadblock for the average new hunter. But beyond just that, again, U.S. Fish and Wildlife gave us a homie hookup and provided the number of what the average hunter spends per year just on travel and gear. That number is $1,300. And honestly, that number is sickening to me. I can't believe some of you would spend that much money. It's wild to me that you would even consider that being the level that you should be purchasing hunting gear at. And no, my wife is not standing right behind the camera, although I'll blink twice if I'm in trouble. But in all honesty, folks, I know I spend probably that much a year on gear, trips, gas to get to scouting trips, gas to get to hunting places. Everything that I do probably wraps up to, honestly, more than that. In a time where our country is starting to struggle financially a little bit, and honestly, the whole world is, that is a huge financial burden to ask your household to take on for what realistically is a really, really cool hobby. So when you look at that number, it's not really surprising that when you break down average hunter retention by their average household income, the difference between 50K and 150K is almost 25% in the retention rate. It is turning into a very costly way of life. Now, I'm not arguing that wild game animals are significantly more delicious and healthy for you. But when you start looking at it as a newer hunter or someone that is struggling to find access to land to hunt, man, what's easier? Spending that sort of money or just going to the grocery store and buying some food? Again, if you're not a diehard, I think it's kind of understandable that this is potentially dying a little bit. So, is hunting dying in America? Well, I think the answer is very complex. In some regions, it is dying very, very quickly. In some regions, it seems to be doing all right. If you look at a national level, I think the answer is yes, it is dying. But it is a very, very slow death, and it seems to be something that potentially we can recover from if we play our cards right. I think if we can remove some of the roadblocks for newer hunters and stop bickering resident, non-resident, elk hunter, mule deer hunter, everybody wants what's best for them rather than looking at what's best for the group. And I think that is a major hurdle that we need to overcome. So I want to know what's going on in your neck of the woods. Are you seeing a decline in participation? Are you starting to see empty parking lots, empty sporting goods stores? Your friends are starting to no longer hunt? I want you to jump in the comment section and let me know what you think is going on. And if you have any solutions to this. But as always, like, subscribe, do all the things YouTube makes us ask you to do. I'm Matt with Deer and Donuts. Goodbye.